Welcome to this deep dive into A Christmas Carol. You've asked to explore the themes and characters of this classic, particularly Ebenezer Scrooge's transformation,
Okay.
and what it might say about us.
Right.
Even today, we're going right to Dickens's original text.
Great.
No shortcuts. So let's jump in. What strikes me
Yeah.
is how Dickens paints such a vivid picture of Scrooge right from the start. It's more than just being a miser, right?
Absolutely. Dickens uses language that really gets under your skin. He describes Scrooge's features as hard and sharp as flint.
Mm-hmm.
His hands tight-fisted, his very being as solitary as an oyster. It creates this sense of a man who is closed off, almost petrified by his own negativity.
And it's fascinating how that negativity is so intensely focused on Christmas.
Right.
It's not just that he finds it inconvenient. He actively despises everything it represents. Generosity, joy, connection. He calls it humbug.
Right.
And even threatens to boil carolers in pudding.
Right. And that hatred for Christmas is really symbolic. You could argue that Christmas, for Dickens, represents the ideal of human connection and empathy. The things Scrooge has completely shut himself off from. It's like he sees these things as a threat to his carefully constructed world of isolation.
What's the point of making Scrooge so utterly unlikable? It almost feels like Dickens is daring us to find any sympathy for him at all.
Perhaps that's the point.
Mm.
Because if someone as seemingly irredeemable as Scrooge can change,
Right.
then there's hope for all of us, right?
And that's where Jacob Marley comes in.
Okay.
His deceased business partner, now a ghost, dragging the literal chains of his past misdeeds.
It's such a chilling image. Cash boxes, keys, padlocks, ledgers, deeds, and heavy purses wrought in steel. But it's more than just scary.
Yeah,
It's symbolic, wouldn't you say?
definitely. The chains represent Marley's life spent fixated on material wealth, ignoring the needs of others. It's the physical manifestation of his spiritual burden. And that detail about his jaw dropping open when he removes the bandage.
Oh, wow.
It's like Dickens is showing us the true horror beneath the surface, the emptiness of a life driven solely by greed.
So Marley's basically a walking, clanking cautionary tale, right? Exactly. He's come to warn Scrooge to shake him out of his self-imposed isolation before it's too late. He foreshadows the arrival of the three spirits, saying they offer Scrooge a chance,
Yeah.
a glimpse at what could be if he doesn't change.
And then we meet the ghost of Christmas past, a very different kind of spirit. He's described as both young and old,
Interesting.
carrying summer flowers and winter holly. I always found that description so intriguing. What do you make of it?
It's brilliantly done, isn't it? The duality of the spirit's appearance reflects how our past holds both joy and sorrow,
Right.
innocence and regret. It suggests that Scrooge's journey through time won't be a simple nostalgia trip. It's going to be a confrontation with the complexities of his own past, the choices that led him to where he is now.
And the spirit's warning. Your reclamation, then take heed. It's like a challenge, isn't it?
Absolutely. The spirit isn't just here to show Scrooge his past. It's here to force him to confront it, to understand how the seeds of his present misery were sown long ago. And the first stop is Scrooge's childhood, a lonely boy in a desolate schoolhouse abandoned during the holidays. It's a glimpse of the isolation that seems to have defined his life.
But then there's this brief moment of warmth, a glimpse of the loving family he could have had. His sister Fan arrives, full of joy and excitement to take him home. It's heartbreaking, seeing that flicker of longing in Scrooge's eyes.
It's a reminder that Scrooge wasn't always like this. He was capable of love, of connection, and that makes his later choices all the more tragic. But then we see him as a young apprentice, working for Fezziwig, who throws these lavish Christmas parties full of music, dancing, and genuine camaraderie.
It's such a stark contrast to Scrooge's own attitude toward Christmas. Fezziwig is described as laughing all over himself, from his shoes to his organ of benevolence.
Yeah.
What do you think Dickens is trying to show us with this scene?
I think it's a glimpse into the kind of man Scrooge could have become Fezziwig while not wealthy. Understands the true spirit of Christmas, the importance of generosity and human connection. It's everything Scrooge has rejected. But it's clear that he's affected by the memory, that he recognizes something he's lost.
And then, of course, there's Belle, the one that he was once in love with. We see their early romance.
Yeah.
But even then, there's a shadow looming, Scrooge's growing obsession with wealth.
And Belle sees it too. She eventually leaves him recognizing that his love for her is being eclipsed by his love for money. It's a pivotal moment, a point where Scrooge chooses material gain over human connection, and you can see the regret etched on his face as he relives these memories. But the ghost of Christmas past isn't finished with him yet. It's time to confront the present.
And for that, we have the Ghost of Christmas Present, a very different kind of specter altogether.
Indeed. No chains here, just an abundance of joy and generosity carrying a torch in shape not unlike Plenty's horn. Get ready, because we're about to see Scrooge confronted not just with his own choices, but with their impact on the lives of others.
This Ghost of Christmas Present, he isn't wasting any time, is he? He takes Scrooge straight to the Cratchit family's Christmas dinner. Remember, this is Bob Cratchit, Scrooge's overworked and underpaid clerk, struggling to support his family.
And yet, there's such a powerful sense of love and gratitude in that tiny home. Their meal is meager, but they savor every bite. And Tiny Tim's toast, God bless us, everyone,
Oh, yeah.
speaks volumes about their spirit.
It always gets me choked up at that part. It's like Dickens is showing us that true wealth isn't measured in money, but in love and connection. But of course, Scrooge doesn't quite get it yet, does he?
Not entirely. But we do see a flicker of empathy when the spirit warns him about Tiny Tim's frail health. Scrooge inquires about the boy's fate, and for the first time, he seems genuinely concerned about someone else's well-being.
It's a small step, but a significant one. Then we see Scrooge's nephew Fred's Christmas celebration. It's full of laughter and games, and while they do poke fun at Scrooge, there's also a sense of genuine concern for him.
Yes, Fred even raises a toast to his uncle, hoping that one day he'll join them and experience the joy of Christmas. It highlights the tragedy of Scrooge's self-imposed isolation. He's surrounded by people who care about him, but he's built walls so high that he can't receive their love.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? If maybe that's part of what Dickens is trying to show us. That we all have a choice to open ourselves up to connection or to shut ourselves off from it. But before we get too cozy with the Christmas spirit, the Ghost of Christmas Present reveals a darker side, doesn't it?
He does. Clinging to his robes are two wretched children. Ignorance and want. They represent the societal ills that Dickens was so passionate about exposing, poverty, inequality, and the exploitation of the vulnerable.
It's a chilling reminder that A Christmas Carol isn't just a feel-good holiday story.
Right.
It's a social commentary, a critique of the greed and indifference that can lead to so much suffering. And those children serve as a haunting foreshadowing of what's to come with the final spirit, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. The ghost of Christmas yet to come arrives shrouded in darkness, silent and ominous. Unlike the previous spirits, this one offers no explanations, no pronouncements. It simply embodies the inevitability of death and the potential consequences of a life misspent.
It's terrifying, isn't it? That sense of the unknown, the finality of it all. And it's interesting how Scrooge reacts. He's still clinging to hope, desperate for reassurance that his future isn't set in stone.
And yet the spirit is relentless. It takes Scrooge on a tour of a future where he's dead and forgotten. A future where people profit from his demise and speak of him with indifference, even contempt.
That scene in the pawn shop is particularly brutal. Old Joe and his cronies are literally picking apart Scrooge's belongings, laughing at the meager offerings at his funeral. It's like Dickens is showing us that a life solely focused on material wealth ultimately amounts to nothing.
Exactly. There's no legacy. No lasting impact. Scrooge is reduced to a collection of objects, quickly dispersed and forgotten. And then, of course, we come to the climax of this spectral journey. The spirit leads Scrooge to a dark, empty room, where a lone figure lies beneath the sheet.
And Scrooge knows, doesn't he? Even before the sheet is pulled back, he knows who it is. He begs the spirit to show him some tenderness connected with his death, some shred of evidence that he was loved, that his life had meaning.
But the spirit remains silent, pointing only to the grave. It's a powerful moment of reckoning. Scrooge is forced to confront the emptiness of his existence, the profound isolation he's created for himself. And it's in that moment of despair that something shifts.
Right. He cries out, are these the shadows of things that will be, or are they shadows of things that may be only? It's a glimmer of hope, isn't it? The realization that maybe, just maybe, he still has a chance to change his fate.
And that's the brilliance of Dickens, wouldn't you say? He doesn't offer us a simple answer. He leaves Scrooge and us with a sense of urgency, the knowledge that our choices have consequences, but also the empowering message that we have the power to choose a different path.
But that's a conversation for the next part of our deep dive. Stay with us as we explore Scrooge's transformation and what might say about our own potential for change even today. So we left Scrooge staring into the abyss, facing the bleak reality of a life misspent. But this is A Christmas Carol, and as you know, there's redemption on the horizon.
What's striking is the immediacy of Scrooge's transformation. He wakes up on Christmas morning, not with dread, but with pure joy and relief. He's like a man given a second lease on life, ecstatic that he has the chance to rewrite his story.
It's almost childlike, his exuberance. He's laughing, crying, throwing open the windows to shout Merry Christmas to everyone who listened.
Hmm.
It's as though years of pent-up emotion have been released.
And that emotional release translates into action. He immediately sets about righting his wrongs. He sends the prize turkey to the Cratchit family, anonymously, of course, not wanting to overwhelm them, but simply to bring them joy.
Then there's that wonderful encounter with the charity collector he dismissed so rudely the day before. He doesn't just apologize, he makes a huge donation, leaving the man speechless.
It's a key moment because it shows Scrooge's change isn't just about fear or guilt, it's about genuine remorse and a desire to make amends for past harm. He's actively seeking to spread kindness and generosity.
And it's not just about the money, is it? He goes to church. He walks the streets, greeting everyone with a smile. He's even kind to beggars, something the old Scrooge wouldn't have dreamed of.
He's engaging with the world, embracing the spirit of Christmas in every interaction, and it's as though his newfound warmth is contagious. People respond to his kindness, and he's no longer isolated, but part of a community.
Then comes the moment we've all been waiting for. The visit to his nephew Fred's house. He's so nervous, passing the door a dozen times before finally knocking.
But once he's inside, he's welcomed with open arms. There's laughter, forgiveness, and a genuine sense of family connection. Scrooge is finally experiencing the joy and warmth he's denied himself for so long.
And the next morning, he's at the office bright and early waiting for Bob Cratchit to arrive. He wants to surprise him, but there's also a hint of mischief in his plan.
He pretends to be his old grumpy self at first, scolding Bob for being late. But then comes the twist. He gives Bob a raise and promises to help his family.
Bob is stunned, of course. It's hard to believe this is the same Scrooge who begrudged him even a lump of coal.
But Scrooge is sincere. He's determined to be a better boss, a better friend, a better man. And Dickens leaves us with this image of Scrooge transformed. He's no longer the squeezing, wrenching, grasping miser, but a good friend, as good a master and as good a man as the good old city knew.
It's a heartwarming ending full of hope and the promise of redemption. But it makes you think, doesn't it? Do we see echoes of Scrooge in our own lives, in the choices we made, the priorities we set?
That's the enduring power of A Christmas Carol. It's not just a charming holiday story, it's a call to action. It asks us to examine our own hearts, to cultivate generosity and compassion, not just at Christmas, but throughout the year.
So as you go about your day, remember Scrooge's journey. Remember that it's never too late to change, to make amends, and to spread a little Christmas spirit wherever you go. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into A Christmas Carol.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure.